Hey guys, and welcome back to Solo 23. I hope everyone is well and good and ready for another enjoyable Q&A episode, solo podcast. As of course we're manipulating the weeks with me and Danny, me and Danny, so you get a bit of the best of both worlds, so to speak. So hope everyone is enjoying the lovely weather that is gracing the UK at the moment. It is fantastically warm here in Crane World, aka in Birmingham. So things are going good and having a good day off. Rest day for me is always on a Thursday. So did my 30 minutes of CV on the Stairmaster and 30 minutes followed up of on the treadmill, George Osborne style. But no, it just allows me to kill off both my CV, 30 minutes, and also just box off about good 5,000 steps, 5,000 steps in the morning, inclusive of the walk to the local Pure Gym. So one of the benefits actually of living in a city centre, guys, is just the ease and accessibility to just a variety of gyms. So I've got a Pure Gym membership and I've got obviously the membership at Ultimate. So, but those will be ending very soon as we move to Sheffield Way in a month's time, just under a month's time. So things are going to change a little bit with regards to obviously our home gym and my environment of living, which is going to be a good thing though, and obviously very much looking forward to moving in with Danny officially, so to speak, because we've been like sort of sharing each other's houses for the first year of our relationship, and yeah, we've been together pretty much a year, almost coming up to a year. So time flies, but time flies when you're having fun. That's soppiness over for today's podcast. So yeah, I'm going to do a bit of an update on myself, and then we're going to roll into the questions as always. So bit of an update on me. So how is the mini cut going? It's going good in the sense that I'm down from obviously my start point, which was now 4 weeks ago. This is my 4th week in a deficit. So 4 weeks ago, 190, now down to 179, so 11 pounds down in four weeks. So it's been a pretty efficient ride in terms of fat loss. Responded pretty well initially, as I knew I probably would. I'd spent the best part of a year in a surplus, so response rates as you spend more time in a surplus are just that much better, and you just seem to just like drop calories and your body just goes, yep, thanks, cool, I'm dropping weight now. So it seemed to be pretty responsive, and I've not really had to change calories at all. Calories are low, of course they are, but they're meant to be low. You know, the whole purpose of a mini cut, and I've actually had this question a lot in terms of how to set up a mini cut, and I'm not going to go into it because it's very, very simple, guys. You just need to get it done. Too many people waste time and spend time sort of dilly-dabbling around in a deficit. Just get the fuck in and get the fuck out and carry on with the goal at hand. The whole goal with this phase, this mini cut, is to potentiate more progress, more muscle gain progress. So this is all about getting my composition, my body composition, back into a spot which is favourable to gain lean tissue moving forwards. So yeah, it's going productive so far. Ideally, I want to get sort of to the low 170s. So ideally, I want to do that over the next couple of weeks. If I can get that done in the next couple of weeks, that would be really productive. That would be great. If I need to carry it out a little bit further, and I might just carry it out up until the point where me and Danny go away on holiday, just for purely the fact that I don't see it as a problem to do that. I don't see it as wasting time, and if anything, it will allow me to sort of be in a bit of a damage control situation for holiday as well, because that means I can go into holiday a little leaner, because I know I'm going to gain a little bit of weight on holiday, so I'd rather lose up until it and then come out of the holiday with that sort of rebounded glycogen effect and get stuck into some really productive training after the holiday. So that's the most likely situation for me. But yeah, down to 179 pounds this morning. Cardio wise, still the same in terms of the setup. So I'm doing 30 minutes on the Stairmaster on my off days. It kind of works out as 60 minutes on my off days if you kind of count the fact that I'm hopping straight on the treadmill at a pretty high heart rate afterwards. But on my training days, the only cardio that I'm doing is 30 minutes on a push day. And I'm just doing anywhere between 10 and 15,000 steps a day, but the bare minimum is it's 10,000. But I'm usually, it depends how much I'm walking and doing stuff, I'm usually hitting closer to 12. And me and Danny at the moment like to go on a bit of an evening walk just to sort of chill out, relax, and sort of cap off the day a bit. And that usually brings me to about that 12,000 mark. So that's where steps are at. And from a training performance standpoint, it's been a really good week. things have been moving fairly well. Definitely moving like a little bit harder. Like push was harder to retain this week in terms of my pressing on the incline hammer strength press and pressing on the high incline double shoulder press. Definitely feeling that just sort of like lack of oomph that you'd usually have when you're in a continued surplus. So I'm looking forward to having that oomph back, not going to lie. And I'm interested to sort of see how that comes back and how responsive I am to carbohydrates when I return. Because I do still measure my blood glucose now and again. And in a fasted state at the moment, it's pretty low, which is obviously understandable because I'm in a deficit and I'm controlling my stress pretty well as well. So there's a few good things that are going on there with regards to biofeedback, which is great to see. And a resting heart rate is coming down as well. However, it's a little elevated just because of the weather. I find when it's hotter, my resting heart rate is just a little bit higher anyway. On that topic, on that note, so you may have remembered about a month and a half ago, had that event when I had to go drop myself off at A&E. With this the sort of racing heart rate kind of situation, so they had to do a little bit more investigating into that. That's like the long story short of it. It's a bit more of a longer story, but it's not really worth telling. So a bit more investigating had to be done, and so I had an appointment booked for an electrocardiogram, or an echocardiogram. Okay, so this is basically like an ultrasound of your heart, and quite a lot of people actually get these done as bodybuilders that are on performance-enhancing drugs, because obviously the heart can enlarge, organs can enlarge in general as you use PEDs, and no, don't worry, I have not gone to the dark side, so I'm not getting this done out of choice. Unfortunately, I'm getting it done because I dropped myself in A&E, and I kind of wish I didn't, to be honest, but it happened, and it was a lesson learned. So I had to wait around for that. And I had one appointment like a month ago, and it got cancelled on the day of the appointment. I was like, for fuck's sake, because it was just something I just wanted to get out the way, basically. I just wanted to sort of get it done and forget about it and not have to worry about having a bloody appointment for an ultrasound on my heart. It's obviously one of your most important organs in your body, so it's a little bit nerve-wracking. So I waited another month, just sort of put it to the back of my mind again, and I went for it yesterday. And I'd spoken to a few people in private, sort of a few of my friends that I'm lucky enough to be able to speak to about it, and they just said, "Oh, you really don't need to worry, AJ. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine." And had it done, and the actual lady that was doing the exam was very complimentary of my heart. She said that it was a very, very healthy heart, and I had no issues whatsoever. So did not have to worry about that at all. But I'm just sort of putting that out there. It's not really something that I needed to update anyone on. It's more so just to remind you guys that, you know, not everything's always perfect, and sometimes you have to do these things, and you know, you have to almost like be a bit worried about something, like an expectation, or whether it's, you know, you've got a blood test, or you've got a scan, or an MRI, or something to be nervous about. Just try and, you know, what I did during the phase where I was waiting for the scan is I just focused on doing as many things that I could do to control my stress as possible. So obviously training is one of them. Walks where I'm focusing on nasal breathing, so sort of, you know, 5 seconds in the nose, 5 seconds out through the nose, because a lot of us just breathe through our mouths, we don't breathe through our nose, and one of the best ways to actually regulate your breathing is to do nasal breathing. So I did a lot of that, and I took advice from a lot of my friends in terms of stress management, and Luke, Muscle Mentors, Luke Hoffman was especially helpful with his advice on basically reducing stress and also improving resting heart rate. And I took on board a lot of the comments that he had to add to the table, and I've seen, you know, drastic improvements in terms of my overall mood, energy, and just general ability to just handle stress. And that's massively important for me in the job and what I do from an individual perspective. To manage stress is massive. I have to manage stress, otherwise it all just gets on top of me, and I end up in a position where I can go into A&E with a racing heart rate and having to wait 2 months for a related scan, you know, and just causing more stress. So I'm glad that's over and done with, to be honest, and just happy to have the result that I knew that I'd probably get. So that is all good. Outside of that, I think hay fever's been a little bit kicking me in the arse a little bit with regards to water retention. I feel pretty just like watery at the moment and just like swollen. I'm not too sure why. I'm not too sure if anyone else has been experiencing this, but both me and Danny have been feeling pretty watery for some reason, and we've both been kind of suffering a little bit with hay fever, so I'm expecting it's potentially down to that. Eyes have been feeling a bit stingy, etc. So hopefully that comes off over the coming days. But yeah, other than that, everything's pretty damn solid. And I had a massage today as well because I am really struggling to open up my right side, my lat, on a rear lat spread. It's probably why I haven't posted one in a while. I just cannot open the fucker up, and it's really annoying me. So I've got some work done on my scap and my lats and also my left hip. Just giving me a bit of shit because I've been doing the Stairmaster, which is kind of my fault. It's like shooting yourself in my foot when my left hip has always been a bit meh. Chuck myself on the Stairmaster 3 times a week and expect it to be fine. And that's not really the reality of the situation. It's going to be a little bit shitty when you do that, funnily enough. So, yeah, I don't really listen to my body on that front. So, I need to learn a little bit more to sort of say, oh, okay, AJ, maybe you don't have to do the Stairmaster. Maybe you could do the cross trainer and not fuck your hip up. So, yeah, maybe I'll do the cross trainer. Maybe I won't. But, yeah, so let's get into some of these questions and we'll see where it takes us as per. So, first question is about pre and post-workout fat intake. So dietary fat in the pre and post-workout window. So pre-workout, I would recommend having some dietary fat, especially if you are in a deficit. The reason why is because your ability or the potential chance for you to have an episode of reactive hyperglycemia when you train, which is essentially you causing a spike in insulin and a spike in blood sugar, and that huge drop off when you start to demand the use of glucose when you train causes this dizziness, this cold sweat, which is massively distracting in your training sessions. Ultimately, if you were using things like exogenous insulin or things like that, you could cause such a high event of reactive hypoglycemia that you could, in fact, die. As naturals, we don't have to worry about that. We can go pretty hypo and not have to worry about it because we're not going to the point where we potentially could kill ourselves. It's not going to happen in reality of things. So, but nevertheless, feeling like that is not fun. Like, you can get very shaky, you can feel very unwell, and it's certainly not a good position to be training. So for most of my clients that are in a deficit, I highly recommend that they're consuming anywhere between 10 and 15 grams of fat in their pre-workout meal. And that can come from not only a direct source, but also a trace source. So you could have, say you're having oats as your pre-workout meal. Let's say, 100 grams, 125 grams of oats is roughly 10 grams of fat. So you're having 10 grams of fat there. So you only need to add in an additional 5 grams of fat from something like dark chocolate or nut butter, something to put on top of the oats and just add a bit of an additional fat intake. So yeah, fats in the pre-workout window, especially if you're in a deficit, highly recommended. Fats in a pre-workout window when you're in a surplus, like you don't really need them because the chances are of reactive hypoglycemia when you're at higher body weights and your insulin sensitivity is much less, funnily enough. So I wouldn't say that it's as important when you are in a surplus and you're in a constantly overfed state, okay? So I wouldn't worry about it as much as I would if you're in a deficit. For girls, especially on low carbohydrate intakes with a massive potential for you to have these hyperglycemic events, pre-workout fat intake, very important. And a lot of you girls do not take note of that. And in your coaching plans from your coach, there's a lot of plans that just do not contain, much fat at all. And especially in that pre-workout setting. And then you're wondering why you get into the gym and you can barely lift anything because you're going dizzy. Sort that shit out, and raise that comment with your coach and just sort of say, look, I'm going hypo in my sessions, like I'm willing to push hard and dig, but look, give me some bloody dietary facts. I need it in my training. I need it pre-workout, okay? And post-workout, I keep it low all the time. The reason why is our ability to uptake glucose in that window is heightened due to the fact that we've somewhat depleted glucose and we have that demand for glucose in that post-workout setting. So it would make sense to create an environment or create a meal where the rapid absorption of glucose is prioritized. So keeping fat intake very low and sticking to more high GI carbohydrates in that post-workout setting would be a really, really good idea. Again, not so pivotal in a surplus. Ultimately, calories are king. But in a deficit where recovery is the most important thing in that post-workout setting, I would highly recommend you go for a low fat or as low fat as possible post-workout meal. And again, go for the higher GI carbohydrates, the ones that are going to absorb very fast. And then in that secondary post-workout meal, you add a bit of additional fat to again get you back to baseline with regards to, not creating that rebound hyperglycemia event from your post-workout meal. And again, I'd recommend that another situation is that if you're having an intra-workout drink, the importance of the pre-workout fat supplementation or fat addition is maybe not as important as it would be if you're not consuming an intra-workout drink, because the chances of hyperglycemia are again limited due to the fact that you're constantly having or sipping on glucose throughout your session. So some considerations there for different circumstances. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so next question is on continuous reps. So this is from Georgie Boy. Hope you're good, mate. This is on continuous reps, so compounds versus isolations. Do we need to be more aware of doing continuous reps on specific things? I think that actually, and this is just again, I'll answer all these questions off the top of my head, but when it comes to compounds, I think the importance of breaking each rep down is very, very pivotal for maximizing the efficiency of that rep from a force output point of view. So if you think about it, in a squat, like for example a hack squat, like the Cybex hack, you're going from a very precarious A to very precarious B. That A to B journey there's so much fucking going on. So if you're trying to do continuous reps in that setting where there's so much going on, or a multi-joint exercise like a deadlift, or even a back squat with a barbell, where there's so much going on, your control and your breakdown of those reps becomes more and more important. Okay, so for compounds, break down those reps, really, really break them down. Think about every single one. Brace your core. Perform the Valsalva maneuver if you need to really, really brace, and really just take your time. And a lot of people will say that's wrong and you need to do continuous reps on everything, but unfortunately I think the people that recommend that are quite injured a lot of the time and keep fucking themselves up because they're not preparing themselves for rep after rep, so they're actually having some sort of injury crop up all the time because they're continuously going for a rep that they weren't properly prepared for. So preparation for that rep is absolutely pivotal. Okay, those reps are so fucking dangerous. Like the rep where I got a couple of assisted reps on the Cybex hack yesterday. Both of those were extremely dangerous reps. Like if I had one foot out of line, or I rushed it, or I didn't take enough time in between reps, that would be an issue for me. Okay, and I would get into a position where potentially I'll see something pop, like my adductor will go ping, as JP usually says. Something will go wrong, and that's just not worth it for me, in my opinion. So yeah, break down your compounds, and then coming on to isolations, I think that actually on isolations you could be a lot more continuous. Now, you can kind of answer that question as to why you'd be more continuous on isolation yourself. Why do you think you'd be more continuous on isolation? Because you're just a lot more locked in. There's not much going on. Okay, on a leg extension, on a leg curl, on an arm curl, preacher curl, there's not much going on. Okay, your stability is massively improved comparative to something like a back squat or a hack squat or a pendulum squat. There's a lot less going on, so the risk is much lower. So with that being said, your ability to perform continuous reps and go for a rep that perhaps isn't the safest is not gonna give you so much issues along the line or later on in that set. And you can think about other things that are going to just enhance your ability to do this even further. So for example, creating an even enhanced stability on isolation. So for example, putting a seatbelt around your hips on a leg extension and a seated leg curl. Because what does that do? It enhances stability. And stability is like one of our number one factors in terms of preventing an injury. And then we can go continuous. And then we can be repetitive. But continuous reps on something, especially like a big compound movement, is just dangerous in a lot of ways. So take your time, in my opinion. Unless you are, this is the only thing that I would consider, is like if you're very, very experienced. So your experience level with training is just so fucking high. Someone, for example, who I know will do continuous reps is Mark Claxton. You'll see him on the Cybex hack squat with 5 plates aside, which is no fucking joke. That's ridiculous. And he'll just do continuous reps with it. No real breaks. And I look at it and I think that's just mad. But he knows that Cybex hack like the back of his hand. You know, he's done so many sessions on that particular hack that he just knows where the limits are. And yes, he's had his injuries and he's had his niggles. Would he have had less if he'd not done continuous reps? I don't know, maybe not. But I would say that he's doing a lot of things right because his quads look ridiculous. And the ability to perform continuous reps like that is a pretty crazy feat. For example, another one who performs continuous reps and tells me off for not doing them is Rich Godzeki. He does continuous reps on the hack all the time. And he'll say on my videos, he'll be like, why are you stopping? So yeah, there is a reason behind why I do it, but ultimately I think, you know, for other people, like pros that knows these machines like the back of their hands, I can see why they want to do continuous. So yeah, I've rambled for like 5-6 minutes about that, so I'll leave that question for now, but hopefully that answers your question fully, bud. So next question is on boiling vegetables. Does this prove an issue for reducing the quality of nutrients within the vegetables? No, I don't think it does. Joe Jeffrey came on actually no, it was Joe Jeffrey's podcast and Luke Hoffman was the guest, and so it's Optimal Physique Development, and Luke was the guest, and they talked all about fruits and vegetables. And I think one of the questions was like the cooking process and like what's a good cooking process, what's a bad one. And I'm pretty sure they discussed that unless you like cook it in a very, very weird way, that it's not going to be too much of an issue at all. And if anything, I think boiling is probably one of the best ways you can do it. Or I mean, I pan fry most of my vegetables, and I remember them saying in the podcast that that's absolutely fine and there's no issues with that. But again, I think people worry too much about like nutrient loss. Like, you know, people said, oh, you know, what happens if you heat whey? You know, does the whey quality diminish? And it doesn't, you know, it just does not, you know. So I would say that, I mean, you're not going to eat fruit, you're not going to eat veg raw, are you? That's the reality of things. So, you know, cook it the way that's easiest for you. But I'd say, you know, for me, I pan fry, and I think that's probably one of the best ways you could do it. Again, with like fry light or olive oil or whatever, you know, just get something in the pan and cook it. You know, I don't think you need to be worrying too much about nutrient loss within the cooking process. Okay, the main thing is you just eat your vegetables. Eat your damn vegetables. Okay, so next question is, and probably quite a lengthy one, is the differences between men and women within fat loss. So there are definitely differences. This is from Izzy. So there's definite differences, and I've seen this amongst obviously the many clients that I've been lucky enough to coach through fat loss phases so far. So with regards to the differences with women, obviously we have the menstrual cycle to battle, and that's obviously playing a pretty pivotal role in terms of the rate of loss, and understanding that a specific week within the cycle, when they are on, even in a gaining phase, for example, can play havoc with the scale and the look. Obviously, water retention will come up in the pre-menstrual cycle sitting for most people. Water retention will rise, bloating will rise, digestive discomfort will be an issue potentially within some, and then you'll get the cycle itself, you'll have the water retention still residing, and then it will drop off within the week after. Sorry if I just veered away from the screen. I didn't run to save someone's life. I just closed the window because living in Birmingham means that there's a building going on all the bloody time, and it's noisy. So yeah, I was talking about the menstrual cycle. So in terms of, yeah, the effects that has, it skews a lot of data for me as a coach, to be honest, and it's a bit frustrating in a lot of ways. But as long as you manage it and you can predict it, and you get people to track their cycle and obviously log it on your coaching sheets or log it on an app, whatever they feel most comfortable with doing, is pretty important and pivotal in terms of just understanding where they are at and continually making changes and adjustments that match that sort of specific situation. In regards to other changes, I definitely see as a result of dieting, females tend to accumulate a little bit more water retention, and the removal of that and the removal of dietary stress or induced stress from being in a deficit is pretty important too. So I do like to definitely take the approach with a lot of females, especially females under higher levels of stress or generally are a little bit more stressed out and not as relaxed as some other females. There's plenty of females that are really relaxed, don't get me wrong, but there's plenty that aren't, as I'm sure people will attest to, and even admit if they are a female, they'll be like, yeah, I'm a stress head with dieting, so yeah, fair play. So I like to implement the 2 high days approach, so the back-to-back high days at the end of the week. I really like that with my female clients because I find that releases a lot of the diet fatigue that's been induced throughout the dieting week and doesn't actually tend to have a negative effect whatsoever on continued progress. So actually it has a positive effect because we diminish that water weight, that body water that's been accumulated throughout the hard week of dieting. So we diminish that off, and then we get in a position where they can further attack fat loss into the next week, and they'll probably look their best over those 2 high days because they also get the benefit of just having more food, which they look forward to. It's a psychological reward. There's not much differences in terms of the fact that stressful or more stress-influenced male dieters respond in a very similar fashion. So George, for example, is a little bit more of a stressful dieter in the sense that he does definitely get a bit stressed out by, am I ready? Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? And it's understandable because he just cares a lot about the process. But nevertheless, the resolve for him is within the high days. Like the high days for him bring him out of that deep dark place where he's like, fuck this, and gives him something to look forward to. And psychologically, big reward aspect. Okay, so it brings off that diet induced stress, produces that better look. And how we'd set that up for people that are wondering. So the 2 high days at the end of the week will be back to back. Usually for psychological reasons, they will be on training days, just because getting someone to have a high day on a non-training day is pretty difficult. Saying, hey, you're going to have a high day and you're going to have them on off days. It's like, what the fuck? Why are you doing that? It's very difficult for people to accept that. But nevertheless, if we can get someone to do that, a lot of the time it's pretty beneficial because they're having the whole day off training and they're having high food. Like that's a combination for epic removal of diet-induced fatigue. But doing it in practice is a different beast. So yeah, that's what I like to do. The high days itself will probably be initially up to like off-season carbohydrate intakes with an addition of dropping protein down to sort of baseline, so around about 1 gram per pound, and fats are very low. So calorie-wise, it's not much higher than a normal day, but it's still high enough to elicit a response that's primarily increasing carbohydrates and reducing diet fatigue as a result. Carbohydrates are your main tool in terms of removing diet fatigue as well. Like they play such a pivotal role in that process. So that's why we utilize carbohydrates in that setting. And I wouldn't really do anything else in terms of like fat loads or protein loads or anything like that. Like you could almost, like, I see some coaches trying to increase protein and get some sort of like thermic effect of feeding or diuretic effect through increasing protein. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think that's going to cause a lot of people digestive tract issues, bloat them and things like that. So actually with a lot of my female clients, I actually really like a lower protein dose than a male, not because of any sort of specific reason besides the fact that females tend to have a little bit more issues or more recurrent issues with digestion, and especially influenced by the menstrual cycle as well. So if I run a protein dose that is always adequate but not significantly high, then I find that their digestion is just much more consistent. So I do tend to go for a slightly lower protein amount in most of my females. But that's not to say that I don't have females on high protein. I've tried high protein in quite a few of my females, and some to great success, some to not success and actually detriment. And obviously we've removed protein then from the diet and brought them back down to sort of a more perceived amount that they can handle, and just worked it up from there if we need to. So outside of that, in terms of fat loss and like diet breaks and things like that, I'd say diet breaks are pretty similar across the board. Obviously, females notoriously have to get onto a lot lower calories. And this is where the whole debate and silly conversations are had between coaches and people backlashing each other. And I don't really like it, but I see a lot of people calling out people and saying, oh my God, such and such thing on such and such calories. Shut the fuck up. Like, who cares? I mean, ultimately, yeah, you wouldn't put someone on stupid calories that make no sense. There are some shit coaches out there, guaranteed. All right, but a lot of the time, females have to dig. Females have to go low to get the fat off. And the more you realize that, the more you'll have females turning up in shape on show day. So obviously there is a way to get a female there and all the way there without having to compromise so many things, especially calorically and from an expenditure point of view. But still, not pushing them is you not doing your job. Like, you've got to push people to get to where they want to be, because they want to be in stage, in condition and winning or doing well. That's your job, to get them on stage. Your job is not, like, I see this a lot, like, oh, I got this girl to stage and she still maintained her menstrual cycle. Yeah, fantastic, but she placed dead last because she was still fat. Like, that's not a win. That's not a net win. If she'd have maybe pushed a bit harder, yeah, okay, cool, she might have lost her menstrual cycle for a period of time, but she might have actually placed in the show, which was the goal. And a lot of these, a lot of females will compromise their general health from a menstrual cycle perspective to get on stage. Some don't, and some turn up in perfect condition with a menstrual cycle. Like, hats off to them, amazing job. And if you've done that through a very smart coaching process, then perfect. But a lot of people will not maintain their menstrual cycle, and that is probably one of the differences in terms of the recovery phase. Of course, males have to think very heavily about recovering their sex hormones, so testosterone. But females have to really think about regaining their menstrual cycle post-competition if they have lost it. That has to be a prioritization in their post-show window, is health, and a phase spent regaining their health markers, as opposed to just looking at, oh, okay, I finished bodybuilding prep, let's gain muscle. In reality, some of the females and males are not in a position to gain muscle post-show. They're in a position where health has to be prioritized, and that's the first variable you have to chase down before you chase anything else from a hypertrophic or another fat loss phase perspective. So, yeah, and outside of that, I think, peaking, obviously females require a lot less manipulation with regards to peaking, especially in the lower level of muscle categories. So bikini peaking is much more simple than a figure athlete or a women's bodybuilder. Wow, a women's bodybuilder. The heater's taking my voice away. So, and obviously like male bodybuilding, etc. as well. In terms of the differences in peaking is quite drastic. You're going to be loading a lot more carbohydrates into a male than you are a female in most circumstances. Don't take it too literally, because some females have a very high tolerance for carbohydrates. I'm coaching a female at the moment, and she's very light, and she's on plus 400 grams of carbs a day and not really gaining weight. So some people's response to carbohydrate and glucose is incredible, and you have to be aware of that, and you don't just have to sort of stereotype saying girls take on less carbohydrates than males. That's not true, but in most circumstances the peaking process is much more simple for people who are less muscled, and that applies to male bodybuilding as well. The more muscled you are, the more complex the peaking, because the more muscle you have to get full, and the more muscle you have to care for in terms of the diet perspective as well. Okay, so yeah, that's my synopsis and wrap up. I could probably a whole podcast on that question, but I will leave it there. That's 10 minutes on one question. So next question is on magnesium glycinate and glutamine benefits. So what's the benefits of using magnesium glycinate and using glutamine, L-glutamine, which is an amino acid? So magnesium glycinate, a mineral, glutamine, an amino acid. What's the benefits? So let's cover the one that probably has benefits first, and then we'll discuss one that maybe has benefits but probably doesn't. So magnesium glycinate is a mineral that can definitely aid bodybuilding in a sense. It can add a positive to your bodybuilding process. The reason why is it works very well at calming the nervous system. Okay, so it has a calming effect. Now, anything that can calm and help us balance the autonomic nervous system is very, very, very advantageous, because we are in a constant battle to control this autonomic nervous system. So we have our parasympathetic branch and we have our sympathetic branch. You know, most of you who have watched this podcast for a while probably know these two branches very well, but to cover them again, sympathetic dominant or sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system is our fight or flight branch. It's where we go into this state of releasing adrenaline, releasing cortisol, releasing stress hormones, and being ready to attack. So it's what we want to get into when we're in that pre-workout setting and when we're in the gym, and when we're wanting to attack weights and when we're wanting to elicit a performance-based outcome. When we're outside of the gym, we really want to focus on getting back into that parasympathetic branch, our rest and digest branch, our chill out state, our recovery state. That's when we're going to be doing the most in terms of, or that's when we're going to be having the greatest adaptations in terms of, you know, forming new muscle tissue, recovering, getting ready for the next session, and also aiding in a fat loss phase in regards to, you know, bringing down these levels of stress hormones and being in a position to continually lose fat and basically, you know, be in a calm position. You know, we can't probably mobilize fat as well as we would if we were just constantly stressed and in that sympathetic dominant state. Okay, so for fat loss and muscle gain, they're both very important to be able to control these two beasts. Now, magnesium glycinate dosages anywhere between 2 and 400 milligrams can be put appropriately within the day around these tasks that are potentially elevating that sympathetic response. So for me, I take magnesium glycinate during a diet, after cardio, and after training, and pre-bed at 200 milligrams in each sitting. Okay, so I'm trying to combat that effect of being in that sympathetic state, heart rate elevated, and I'm trying to get back into that recovery state before my next period of being, again, in a sympathetic dominant environment. So that's magnesium glycinate. And again, obviously, the calming effect, well, it improves sleep. Because the more calm you are, probably the better sleep you're going to get. So yeah, magnesium glycinate is a good one. And again, it's not harsh on the gut because, you know, something like, for example, magnesium, what's the actual name for it? So there's another strain of magnesium, should I say. I think it's taurate. I don't think it's taurate, actually. It might be magnesium oxide. But I remember one of my clients picked it up and, oh yes, I've got it now. Magnesium citrate. So magnesium citrate has probably a fairly significant laxative effect. So glycinate is probably the best strain to use, the best type to use in terms of achieving that goal. Whereas, you know, the others, for example, like citrate, could provide a laxative effect, and that's not what you want from magnesium. Okay, so just be careful with the ones that you do pick up. Glutamine-wise, I mean, there's been maybe some research to uncover some potential gut health benefits, especially if you're dealing with any sort of gut health issues. The lining, the bacteria, the gut may potentially be improved by glutamine supplementation, but outside of that, it does really fuck all in terms of hypertrophy and muscle building. So if you're taking glutamine and your reasoning is not because of like gut health benefits, then I probably wouldn't bother. And then again, the research is probably not amazing in terms of just anything that it does. So I personally don't take glutamine. I don't anymore. There's no reason to. Okay, so that's what I would say on that front. Let's move on to the next question. So the next question is isolations before compound movements. So why have I been doing this currently, and what do I think the benefits are? So, for example, the reasons why I'm doing it and where I'm doing it on a leg day. Okay, so I'm doing leg curls, leg extensions before my primary movements. Now, the reason why I'm doing this, and this will probably clear up why I'm not doing it on an upper body day, is because doing those two movements in that setting is allowing me to get very, very, very good contractions, because from a neurological perspective, I'm very fresh. So mentally, my focus is at its best at that point of the session. Now, of course, you'd argue that when your focus is highest, doing something like a compound would be the best. But what is a compound? A compound in itself, one set of a hack squat to the intensity that we take it, is very neurologically demanding. So how do you expect you're going to perform in those leg extensions and leg curls that you're doing after your hack squat top set? Probably not the best, right? So doing them beforehand where you're a little fresher and you can really just sort of get going with them and attack them is advantageous because they're not that neurologically taxing leg curls and leg extensions. And neither are they systemically taxing either. So you can get them done and still be pretty fresh for your hack squat, but at least you've got them done in a quality fashion. So you can force really strong contractions, you can stay locked in, you can get great execution, and these movements can offer you probably a bit more bang for your buck in this setting than they would later on. Also, a lot of you aren't blessed with machines that offer a change or manipulation in the resistance profile. So for example, at Ultraflex, you've got the ability to match the resistance profile to the strength profile of the actual muscle that you're working. And that actually offers a benefit in terms of later on the session where that muscle is inherently weaker and you can start to challenge the muscle through the range in which it's strong versus weak. Okay, so you can balance that out by manipulating the resistance profile on, for example, something like a prime leg curl or a prime leg extension, or strive if you have them in older gyms. Okay, but if you haven't got those pieces, then arguably doing these movements first will offer a benefit because you are mechanically going to be quite weak going into those movements at the end of the session because you've taxed yourself with the big compounds. Okay, there's pros and cons of both, of course. Some people might find that if they do the isolations first, they're really taking away from their performance in the compound movements. That's fair play. If you find that happens, then maybe not doing this is the best approach for you. But for me, I don't find that it does that at all. If anything, I think it actually improves my ability in the compound movements because I'm a little bit more warm. I'm also just sort of like, I'm a little bit amped up already. I'm not having to find my momentum in the session. I've already gotten going a little bit. And I've got momentum from a few movements that most likely have gone well because it's very rare that you have a day where you have an off day on a leg curl or an off day on a leg extension. I know that if Jack Thorburn's watching, he'll probably say that every day is an off day on a leg curl because I know that he gets pretty pissed off for them. But when he's on a good run, that's a good start to the session. But for most of us, like, who don't have issues with regards to like muscular contractions and things like that, which I know that in all seriousness, Jack does have issues with regards to muscular contractions. I know that. But if you don't have those issues, then probably going into a leg curl leg extension, you can just hop on it. And you can just get good start to your session and mentally get off to a banger before you even gotten going. And that's a benefit in itself because a lot of the time a compound can go wrong and it can affect your entire psychological approach to the rest of the session and bring you down massively. And then you're going into your compounds pissed off. So that's why I set up compounds or isolations and then compounds on a leg day. On an upper body day, it just doesn't make sense to me, if I'm honest. I just don't think there's much benefit of doing. I mean, maybe if you've got a really weak body part, like for me, I'd maybe consider doing my arms before I move on to the rest of the upper body session. But besides that, I don't think that there'd be an advantage from me doing something like that in an upper body day. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, primarily I'm doing this on lower body sessions. So someone's saying sleep tracking apps, they're getting 0 deep sleep on a Fitbit. So first of all, I think the sleep tracking apps are quite likely half the time a load of garbage in terms of what they're producing. Now, remember that your Fitbit can just... I mean, I've probably tracked 100 steps doing this bloody podcast. So there's a lot of things that these sleep tracking apps can do, which are giving us a output which is probably consistently inaccurate. So if you're seeing that you're consistently getting 0 deep sleep, then really assess as to whether you could be improving your sleep efficiency and your sleep quality within your day-to-day routine. But outside of that, if you're constantly getting 0 deep sleep, but you're actually waking up feeling good, you sleep throughout the night, you're not waking up a million times to go to the toilet, then it's likely that you're probably getting some deep sleep and the app's just telling you that you're not. Okay, so assess your day-to-day habits, your routine, your sleep schedule and everything like that before you make assumptions. But I would say that the likelihood of you actually just getting 0 deep sleep is probably quite low, and the app is probably telling you a bunch of rubbish, you know? So I always say this to my clients, the best feedback that they can give me from a perspective of sleep is, how have you slept this week? Tell me how you've slept. Like, have you slept good? Have you slept bad? Have you had any nights that have been interrupted? Have you had any nights where you went to bed really, really late? Like, what the hell happened? Tell me about it. That's what I need from a coaching perspective, not just a percentage in a box from an app that's maybe not the most accurate thing in the world. Like, of course, it offers benefit, for sure, but it's not the be-all and end-all. That's absolutely true, okay? So, and also try maybe a few other apps. The sleep app, the sleep cycle app is not bad. Again, and also depends, like, if you have someone else in the room. Like, for example, it's pointless me using it when me and Danny are sleeping in the same bed because it picks up noise from the microphone. It's just pointless. Like, if she wakes up 4 times in the night and I wake up none, my sleep quality is shit, but it actually could be 100%. So it's depending on where you are. So yeah, be really aware of that sleep tracking apps are probably not the most accurate thing in the world. Surprise, surprise, There are probably more accurate things out there, like, for example, wearing a polar heart rate tracker and actually sleeping in that is probably quite accurate. An Oura Ring is probably quite an accurate tool as well. I've heard the accuracy on those things are really, really good. I'm toying at the moment between getting an Apple Watch or getting an Oura Ring. I kind of want both, if I'm honest, because I want the Apple Watch because I want a actual thing on my wrist. So right now I've got a Fitbit Blaze, which is like 3 years old, and I'm pretty sure everything's fucked on it, if I'm honest. But I want a new fitness tracker, but I'm thinking of getting the Apple Watch because I don't really want a ring, if I'm honest, and I would just want something that consistently can track everything for me. So yeah, I'm thinking of getting the Apple Watch, and I'll let you know how I get on with that if I do get it. So next question is on my reverse diet in 2017. So Jeannie sort of asked, like, when did I reverse? And I guess I can sort of go into sort of how you would know how to reverse and the process that sort of took place. So basically, up until my first show, I was dieting really, really hard. So the BNBF Midlands, I dieted very hard for that. Calories at their lowest were 1900 on all days. I think actually a little bit lower on rest days, but not much. Just a little bit of a change in fats and carbs. And I was doing 30 minutes of Stairmaster. I've forgotten what level, but it was high, it was hard. And I was doing that every day. And I was doing 15 to 20,000 steps. So I was doing a lot of activity, okay, trying to just pull off a lot. That was in the final few weeks leading up to the Midlands when I realised that I was a bit behind. So I pushed really, really hard for the Midlands, did the Midlands, had a diet break, came off the diet break, pushed for, I think, just about 2 or 3 weeks up until the UK FBA Northern. So by that point, it was like 24, 25 weeks of prep. And then what I did for the BNBF, for the UK FBA Northern is I ran a peak week where I just, from Monday onwards, I just started with my usual refeeds. And then I just tapered the refeeds back a little bit and I just kept running like 400 to 450 carb. Low fat, 40 fat, and about 180, 170 protein. And I just kept protein pretty low, fats really low, carbs were up, from where they were at like 250 to up to all the way to 400, 450, and I just kept running it. And I just looked better and better and better that week. And that was probably the best look that I had. Like, Jack and me agreed that was one of the best looks that I had all season. The new KDFBA Northern, it was just such a nice balance of fullness and conditioning without being like super, super, depleted. And then from that point onwards, I just thought, okay, well, I'd run the refeeds all week and my weight had actually gone down. So I was like, okay, what will happen if I just keep doing this? So I just kept running the refeeds. I kept running 400 carb or 450 carb. Anywhere between these two numbers, it's just depending on the day, the training session, etc. And same expenditure, so still doing the 15,000 steps, and I just pulled out the Stairmaster completely. I just focused on doing steps, and I did them all on my treadmill very quick, or I went out for a morning walk and an evening walk before I got my treadmill. So there would be fast walks, so the morning walk would be fucking pacey, and I'd try and beat a time on my Fitbit, and then the evening walk again would be pacey, and I'd try and beat a time on my Fitbit. Every single time I'm trying to beat this time. If you're an OG follower, you'll remember me putting them on my story, the Fitbit times from my power walks. So I did one in the morning, one in the evening. Trust me, I dragged myself on a lot of those fucking walks. Okay, so they were tough, and I was eating a lot of food, and training performance was good, pumps were good, and my body weight just kept on like maintaining or going down. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna roll with this, and that was it for the rest of the season. I just rolled with that. I never really saw below 400 grams of carbs the entire rest of that prep. Of course, expenditure was high, 15,000, 20,000 steps a day. no formal cardio apart from a 100-calorie warm-up on a cross trainer before a session. That was it. And I just sort of tickled away and got better. And probably, again, looked really good for the BNBF finals. And then from that point onwards, like, of course, I had, like, I think 5 or 6 weeks into the BNBF finals. And then another 3 or 2 weeks into the UKDFBA finals. So by that point, it was another 10 weeks of dieting at least. And then another 6 weeks on top of that to the Worlds. By the Worlds, I was just very tired. And my body had just been in a deficit for too long. And even, like, coming out of a deficit just wouldn't have made me look any better. By that point, it was just so long in a deficit that I was just starting to really, really look quite shit. So it's why I'm being quite cautious with my clients now that are coming in quite fast, because I'm like, okay, right, let's say this guy, gets all the way through till November. How are we going to plan things for this person? How are we going to get them to where they need to be and holding on to what they need to hold on to? Because what my mistake was is that I pushed really hard for the first show, and then I just didn't have enough in the tank because I'd already sort of used that bit of gas to get me there, and I didn't have enough sort of redemption of diet breaking or coming off the gas to be able to then, either push harder again or go up in calories and actually look good. Valentin Tambosi also, he reversed for quite a period of time in 17 all the way up until November. And he actually just looked worse and really found it quite hard to adhere. I didn't really struggle with adherence too much, but I struggled quite a bit with just maintaining my look, maintaining my fullness and roundness to tissue. And I think that was a lot down to me doing stupid things with my training as well. So if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking about adding sets or doing more in the gym, don't fucking do it. Because I did it and I started to look worse. So stick to your volume. Don't add more. The minute you add more, it's just you're opening up this door. Here's the door. Opened, and that's tissue loss you've just let in. Okay, so don't do that. Just do your work and don't do any more. Listen to what your coach is saying, because there's a reason why they're saying it. Okay, so how would my physique do this year in terms of the lineup? So it's an interesting question, and actually I think that I think honestly, like, it would just be just as hard as 17. In 17, Kieran Howells, Tafa Emoji, all of these guys, very, very good athletes. Either top 5 at the BNBF Britain were crazy good. The top 5 at the UKDFBA finals are really, really fucking good. So I think, again, it'd be just as difficult as 17. There are obviously some really, really good guys out there this year that I probably wouldn't want to be competing up against, if I'm honest. And I look at some of them and I'm coaching some of them and I'm like, fuck me, I wouldn't want to be going up against you. But I would still go against them. I give them a run for their money. I might look skinny in a t-shirt, but when I pose and I get into positions and I can sort of be a bit of a physique contortionist, like just morph myself into something that looks bigger. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I was 148 at the UKDFBA. Next to me, Ronnie Kai, who was like 170. And then the other side of me in third, Kieran Howells, he was like 165. So they had a lot of weight on me. But your ability to obviously get it all off and dig the fuck in. Not that those guys didn't. They certainly did. But, a few extra lines here and there definitely does you some favours. And, I think if Kieran had come in balls to the wall condition, and Ronnie as well, maybe they'd have tipped me. But they didn't. So they didn't tip me. So now all I'm saying to my guys, I'm like, if you're on the day and you're like in full contest condition, you're going to be hard to break, because there's very few people that are going to turn up like that. So yeah, that's my answer to that question. So quick answer on sort of short but aggressive surplus phases. So do I think it's beneficial to like go into a surplus for a very short period of time? No, I don't. The reason why I don't is like, why? You're just adding a load of body fat really fast, and you're not spending enough time to actually actualize tissue gain, muscle tissue gain. You're not spending enough time to start beating the logbook. You might have a really good few weeks where you're in that ginormous surplus and you're actually beating the book a little bit. But then off the back of that, you will drop off faster than like a fly will drop when you flick it like that. You know, that's a weird analogy, but like seriously, you will really drop back very fast as you enter the deficit required to get off all the fat that you've gained. So my answer to that is no. Go in longer surplus phases. Be assertive. You know, be assertive. Like, no, I'm not a big fan of going very, very slow. I'd say in between this aggressive and also the slow. So like in between that. And that usually works out, depends on the person, man. Like, I've had people gain really fast, but their physique shots still look good. So if anything, my answer is probably very determined on the individual, and be sure to take progress photos very consistently, because I've had some clients gain probably as fast as you'd probably mention in this aggressive surplus phase, but still look really, really good. So it really does depend on the person, the situation, and whether they can handle a fast rate of gain, psychologically as well as physically. Next question is training around niggles. So how to train around consistent niggles. So again, if it's persistent and it's actually very painful, and if anything, if it's interrupting your day-to-day life, you need to get that sorted. So go and see a physio, go and see a chiro, go and see an osteopath, someone who can help you. So I saw my massage therapist this morning, and you know, I'd been having issues with my left hip, my upper back, my release, my left lat, right lat, sorry, and touch wood, it feels awesome now. So get work done and it should be okay. But you will need someone to release that area if it is tight and persistently tight. So get someone to release it. Things should be good from there. And then just be cautious. Like, once someone's released that area, it's not all good. You've got to be still. You can't go in and train like a absolute maniac and expect it to be fine again. You know, just be cautious working around it as you continue, and pick and select exercises and be like, okay, that's not working, that's causing me pain, that's causing me irritation. Pick them out and chuck them, like replace them with something else that's not causing you an issue. That's really, really important. So pullovers for hypertrophy, in terms of like dumbbell pullovers, cable pullovers, machine pullovers. So from what I've seen, really, I would say if you're not doing a pullover, you should, because every person that I've seen that does pullovers has very good front shots in terms of the front relaxed, the front double, the front lat spread. The lats from the front just look different to people that don't do pullovers. So pullovers, do them, definitely do them. Unless they cause you injuries or niggles, a lot of people get anterior delt pain in a pullover. And a lot of people feel them a lot on the triceps, so find a position or a movement that suits you. Funnily enough, I've been slacking on my pullovers. I need to get back into them because they're not a movement that I've done in a while, to be honest, and I need to get back into them. I was doing them first in my pull sessions for a while, and I did notice a good improvement in my front shots with my lats, so I'm going to put them back in and start attacking them again. So thank you for reminding me of that. I need to get after my pullovers. But yeah, dumbbell pullovers, I love, you know, the Dorian Yates style machine pullovers, and Ultimate, I love them as well. So yeah, definitely to get the pullovers in, that they're worthwhile doing for sure. So in terms of the next question, it's about body weight in the last phase of contest prep. So does body weight sort of have a bigger factor? Like how do we monitor body weight in the last phase of contest prep when you're really, really lean? And obviously, like, you're looking for the scale weight loss, but in reality, the scale, what is it telling us? So especially if you're reversing, it's a mind fuck. You know, I've seen people gain 4 or 5 pounds in a reversed setting and look leaner than they ever have before in a reversed setting. And I've been like, whoa, like, what the hell is going on here? But it's just all intramuscular fullness. And that's what you got to remind yourself of, is like, you're trying to put a physique on stage that is not depleted and worn out. So if you're looking to get to a specific body weight to fit into a weight category, you need to do that. You need to get as lean as you need to get to that to fit into that weight category, or as light as you need to be. But outside of that, you have no parameters that are telling you to get to a certain body weight. So all you need to do is monitor your look and the mirror and the physique shots. Those are the ones that count way more than a scale. So almost just in the final phases, like, put the scale away a little bit and think about really being critical with the way that you look in the mirror and the way that you look in your posing updates. Those are the two main variables that you need to be aware of. Those are the tracking points, okay? So ditch the scale a little bit. Obviously, be aware of it. If your scale weight goes up 10 pounds in a day, you probably should be aware of that. But be monitoring your photos. Don't really care about what weight you come in at unless you're in a weight category and you're really being cautious as to where you need to be. Like, for example, I need to be under 70 kg next time I compete, so I need to be under that. I wouldn't make a good middleweight at the moment, so I need to be under 70 kg. So I don't care. I need to get there. So for me, that body weight is pretty important. And, you know, for Kevin, for example, he had to weigh under a certain amount to meet the classic physique division. So he needed to be under a certain body weight. But outside of that, you know, if you're a junior, for example, don't care about body weight. Just get peeled. And then when you're peeled, just ignore body weight a little bit, go by photos and find the best look for you, whether it be 2 pounds above your lowest baseline, 3 pounds above your highest baseline, whatever. Like, you need to be where you need to be to look your best. And that's where a second or a third eye comes in and just sort of says, yeah, this is a good look, let's go with this. Because your mind's going to be pretty fucked by that point. All right, so that is that. Final question is from my client Jade, and it's actually something that we've been going through together recently, is like, how do you find categories for clients? So obviously when someone starts, they'll have an opinion of a category they want to be in. And obviously for Jade, it was bikini. And as you diet down, you'll start to see someone's muscularity start to come through. And sometimes the muscularity doesn't match the division, or is bigger than the division maybe demands in some categories and some federations. And at that point, you start suggesting whether, you know, you'd go to another category. So, you know, in Jade's position right now, you know, we're considering potentially looking at figure as well as doing bikini, because from what I've seen this year, some of the figure girls in the UKDFBA with the introduction of the fit body class are slightly smaller than they have been in the past. So the option for doing figure is there, provided we can nail the posing. So my decisions around finding categories for clients is like, let's get you ready, let's get you close to ready, and see where we're going from there. And let's make a decision when we get to the sort of like, okay, 10-week out, 9-week out mark, when we can really start to see your level of muscularity. But for other people, it's quite clear. Like for a men's bodybuilder, it's like, okay, cool, men's bodybuilding. Or like junior bodybuilder, okay, cool, junior bodybuilding. But sometimes it's not. Like for example, Connor Crumpton, he wanted to do physique. He was like purely mindset on physique. Did a physique show, and I was like, mate, your legs are way too good for this to be hidden. So we whipped off the board shorts, not in person, because that would probably be a breach of my coaching client confidentiality. But we took off the board shorts, put on posing trunks, and then he did a bodybuilding show, and he did much better in bodybuilding. To be honest, he looked a better bodybuilder. And now the goal is, in his off season, he's got so much time. Like, I'm very excited about Connor, because he's got the ability to compete as a junior in 2022. Take that into perspective. If you want to see someone who's going to be destroying people in 2022, it's going to be him. It's going to be him. Like, he was already good enough to place pretty highly in 2 UKDFBA shows as a junior at his age, 20. And he's got till 2022. And we're going to be off-season for, you know, pretty much 2.5 years. We're going to fix his imbalances. We're going to grow him physically, mentally, everything. And then we're going to attack 2022. Like, that's a long-term plan for him. And I have clients like that already. I have clients that are telling me I want to compete in 2022, 2021. Like, that's where you need to be in terms of improving and stepping up to where you want to be. But a bit off topic, but yeah, get people lean and really sort of start to see where their shape falls, and then pick the category later on. One of my clients, again, Grace, came to me wanting to do bikini, and immediately I was like, Grace, you know, like, bikini's not for you. And I just slowly got her into the idea of doing figure, and now it's almost definitely looking like she's going to do figure fit body in the UKDFBA and figure in the BNBF. So the BNBF figure is much more muscular figure version than the UKDFBA. It just is. Just the muscularity levels are much higher, and they reward that. So she's going to definitely just do figure in the BNBF, because she's not athletic, she's not physique, she's not bodybuilding. She's not that kind of look, in my opinion, and I've got the opinions of others as well. So, and they all agreed that would be the right place for her. And again, that helps as well. Just like people who have more experience, like I've shown a lot of my female clients to other female coaches and people who I really respect in the industry, and I've been like, okay, where does this person fit? And luckily, obviously, you've got people like Lee and Amy in my corner who I can literally like say, where does this person fit? And they'll give me their honest opinion. And sometimes there's mixed opinions. Like, I showed Amy someone and she said that, and then I showed Lee her and he was like that. It was both different. And that's just because people have different opinions, and that shows how different like opinions affect judging panels. And that's the reality of bodybuilding. It's an opinionated sport, which is fine because that's the way it should be judged. And that's why you have a judging panel, not a judge. Okay, so that's going to be it for this week. An hour and 5 minutes, we're done. So I hope you've all enjoyed this. As always, share it around, put it on your stories if possible. I hope you're having an amazing day, guys. Have an amazing weekend, whatever you're doing. And I wish you all the best week ahead. And I will look forward to chatting to you again next week. And probably Danny will be with me, which will be lovely. All right, so chat to you soon. And yeah, peace out. Thanks, guys. Bye.